Um, this is one about the concept of the inner being. I'm finding it hard to relate to the fact. The way I see it, I visualized it in my head. You know those cartoons where you have the little angel on your shoulder, you have the
Yeah,
little devil.
yeah,
Well, this angel's got a mute button on it, and this devil's saying, "Don't do this. Eat, sleep, overdo things. You haven't got time for this." All I'm hearing is the devil.
yeah,
All I'm hearing is the negative voice, the inner
yeah. I
critic.
call that the inner critic. So
Yeah,
inner critic, inner being.
yeah. And what I want to do is I want to mute the inner critic, and I want to start hearing the inner being, but I can't seem to get that
Yeah.
connection.
So in order to mute the inner critic, you want to take its fuel away.
Mm.
Okay. So, and I'm just going to take a guess here. You said not good enough was one of your dominant negative emotions.
Mm-hmm.
The major theme of that inner critic that's on your shoulder, is it a constant theme of not good enough?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's because that inner critic gets fueled by the negative emotional baggage that we're carrying.
Mm.
So by doing things like the belief tree process, the freedom formula, the more you can clear out that feeling of not good enough, the more you take the power away from that inner critic, and
Yeah.
it will have less fuel to voice itself. And this is a great question because, again, most people who listen to Abraham Hicks, they're under the impression that, oh, negative emotion, I got to just focus on something else that feels good. Negative emotion, I got to, and that's a good first step. But if you always just focus away, then you're not doing anything to tame that voice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? And if you don't do anything to tame that voice, high and consistent alignment or getting into alignment is going to be more effort because you've got that voice chirping in the background.
Yeah.
So essentially the key to that is clearing those emotions out. And another example you can use is somebody who's got a lot of emotions of not good enough. It only takes something very small to trigger them into that emotion, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they're driving down the street and they accidentally cut somebody off and that person honks at them, and then they feel not good enough for the rest of the day because that happened, right?
Yeah.
On the flip side, somebody who doesn't have that emotional baggage, the example I use is The Rock, or you could use David Hasselhoff. I know you're a Baywatch fan, but like somebody like The Rock is there you go is going to be so confident that if somebody walked by The Rock and said, "Hey, Rock, you suck," well, his confidence is so high that that's not going to bother him, right?
Yeah.
So that inner critic is fueled by the baggage we carry. And by effectively dealing with and clearing that baggage, you take the power away from that inner critic and it'll automatically silence itself.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense because I can have a day where maybe, let's say 5 people say nice things and it's wonderful, and one person can say something negative and it's just destroyed the day. Do you know what I
Absolutely.
mean? And that's what you said about The Rock, is you've got to come at it from that vibration of just brushing off the little things
Yeah.
and focusing on the big things that are going well.
Yeah. And it won't sting as bad if that emotion is not there, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so the big thing about the clearing work is, somebody who's got anger issues, it's not because he's got anger in his DNA. It's because that person has a big emotional baggage filled with anger. So it just takes a little bit to set that fuse off and, push them over the edge into their anger.
Yeah. That sounds like me after a breakup.
Yeah.
I kid myself that I need the anger to get over it, but it gives me a paralysis to the good feelings.
Absolutely. And the good news is that once you really effectively deal with that stuff, and when I work with one-on-one clients, it typically takes 8 to 12 weeks. But once you really clear all of this stuff out, it's so life-changing because that's what makes alignment effortless. And you're not
Yeah.
triggered into wobble-baby circumstances anymore. And that's why I'm such a big promoter of these processes in the collective, because everybody's carrying these things in one way or another, right? Most people have 1 to 3 of these dominant negative emotions. And
Yeah.
dealing with these things and clearing them is literally the most life-changing thing anybody can do.
Yeah, and I've been kind of kidding myself that I've been watching everybody else do it and kind of telling myself that I don't need to do that. Do you know what I mean? But I so do.
Yeah, yeah, and it's okay, right, to
Mm,
acknowledge that, because like, nobody goes through childhood and the teenage years without collecting negative emotions. Like, it's
mm,
literally, we choose to come into this physical reality for that contrast, because that contrast is what leads to our growth and our expansion.
mhm.
So, a lot of people think, oh, I don't have that, or I don't want to worry about that, or I don't want to look at that. That's a choice. You don't have to look at that stuff if you don't want to. But I just want people to know how significant of a positive shift you will experience, both in the way you feel and what you
Yeah,
experience out here by working through that stuff.
that's it. That's it. I've been focusing on the 2.0 recently,
Yeah,
and I realised I have been the 2.0 before, and that's the best version of me. But I want to get there so I can jump into the 3.0, which is the version I've never been before.
totally.
But
Totally.
like you've said before, do it gradually, do the baby steps. Don't expect big results by doing just one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would still expect the results, but
Mhm.
be detached from the results. Understand that
Yeah,
work is a journey, and it's always going to be a journey. And it's
yeah,
not about doing the work for the change, it's about doing the work for the way it's going to make you feel. And
yeah,
looking for the outer change, then that puts you in a more less resistant place for that change to happen.
yeah. And like I realized just recently, I mean, I came here like most did because I wanted to attract more money. But I realized it's less about the external things and it's more about the internal things, and it's about improving me, not improving the world that I get things. It's improving myself so that things come to me that I deserve. It's
Absolutely. And I'm going to be a little bit nitpicky. I don't like the word improving, because like
yeah,
you're already perfect just the way you are, right?
mhm,
So it's not about improving, it's more about finding a more preferred state of being.